What's up, everybody? Just wanted to talk about this really frustrating error for those of you that have worked with it. It's the 0x0000007B. This has to do with your hard drive. When you're installing Windows, this is the most common time that it shows up. Sometimes your computer might be in a boot loop, so you might not be seeing this issue. If you can, start up your computer with F8 like you would normally do to go into safe mode and try to get your computer to not reboot after system failure. But basically, if you're at the point where you're seeing this error and you're not sure what it is, it's definitely to do with the hard drive controller. Every new computer comes with AHCI enabled, and AHCI is Advanced Host Controller Interface, which basically allows the hard drive to do a few more things that it can't do with the old configuration, which didn't really require drivers per se. Basically, what it allows you to do is unplug a hard drive or a device while the computer's powered on. It has some more advanced features, but I don't want to get into that. Your problem is you're having this error, and most likely you're trying to install Windows. Now, I would like to just mention really quick that if you're having this error and you're not reinstalling Windows, all of a sudden it just started. Make sure that nobody altered the BIOS setting. If you changed your SATA operation or SATA operating mode in the BIOS from, let's say, AHCI to RRT or RAID or Legacy, that could cause the computer to not boot anymore. So you have to make sure that you kind of ask around or change it back, okay? And that'll fix the problem, unless there's a real actual hardware failure or hard drive problem. But most of the time, somebody alters the BIOS thinking, oh, I can make the hard drive operate differently, and they end up blue screening and they're not sure why, even though whatever. So the smart thing to do is change it back. But anyway, just wanted to go over a few things on how to fix it. So let's say you're trying to install Windows and it's doing this. Well, first thing you need to do is make sure you have the right drivers. One site I really like, just for Dell, it's a great example, is the Dell Enterprise deployment site. So let's say I'm doing, and you can just Google Dell Enterprise drivers, and it's Dell command deploy drivers. And it's really neat because it tosses all the drivers into a cab file, and you just extract it like a zip file. You don't need any special software. So let's say I have a 6540, and this is the Windows 7 cab. And basically what that'll let me do is download. They're usually pretty big because they have the 32-bit and the 64-bit drivers in there, and you don't really need to worry about any of that stuff. So you do need to worry about it. You just need to know what architecture your operating system is. You either can look at the media, or if you have it installed on another system and you're not sure, just right click on the start menu and go to system. This is the same in Windows 7. You can click on the start button and right click on computer, and it should say 64-bit operating system, or you could go to the run box, and this is really simple. You just type in win, V-E-R, and hit enter. And sorry, I have to drag it over. And it's actually not showing me the architecture here, but so never mind. But at least you know how to bring this window up now. So I'm downloading a cab file. It's pretty big, but and my internet's not the fastest, but it's not the slowest either. But you could look at the drivers, and it's important to note that with these packs, there's some things. But really, if you're creating an image, let's say you have an image and you have all these drivers in the image and you're having problems, the first thing you need to do is get those drivers out of there, because chances are it's trying to install the wrong driver or thinks it has the right driver, and you're getting the 7B error. All those zeros, I don't know why they're necessary, but you need the storage controller driver. So the first thing you need to do is think about the environment you're in. If you have a Windows 7 64-bit CD or USB drive and you boot up, you need to make sure that you have the 64-bit Windows 7 storage controller drivers. Okay, now Windows 7 is to the point now where it's kind of old, so the media that you get from the store or online is not going to have drivers for newer systems, and so what you need to do is get those drivers, and you can take them and download them and extract the storage controller drivers to a a folder on your USB drive, or just put it on a USB drive and make it available when you boot off the CD, and basically specify that path. So when you go to install Windows 7, in the setup screen, you would just hit provide drivers, because it will most likely bark at you for not seeing any hard drive. It may say there's no hard drives available, so you might need to specify drivers. So once this is downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and resume and show you how to get the drivers. They're very small, so it kind of stinks that you have to download this entire pack, but it's probably one of the most reliable places to get the correct drivers. And this is applicable in Windows 7, 8, Windows Vista, 8.1, Server, all that stuff. A computer, when you image a computer or install Windows, is absolutely critical to have the storage controller drivers, and in some situations the network card if you're running SECM or MDT. And the reason for this is it needs two things. It needs to write and read from the hard drive locally to procure the operating system, and it needs to potentially have network access. Let's say you have a dependency there. But for a common install, when it comes down to the marrow, what you need is the correct drivers, or just bare minimum storage controller drivers. And then you can install the rest of the drivers if you're really having problems once the system has Windows installed, once your operating system is operating. There's nothing more frustrating than this error. I've had to deal with it so many times in an enterprise environment with so many different types of model computer, and it's very, very frustrating because you can't do anything. When it gives you this error, it's not like, hey, do you have another driver you want to try? No, it just keeps doing it, and you have to reinstall Windows. And while that driver is downloading, I'd like to just mention that Dell actually has created a site for those of you that are trying to change to HCI or RAID without actually reinstalling the operating system, because that's the official fix. And I'm going to have the link pop up here in the video. But basically, it's exactly what it says. It's just a simple registry change. It's unbelievable how easy it is. And it makes me it bugs me because, the system, the whole operating system, all that code, all the software, it can't do a simple, it can't say, hey, the SATA operation, maybe it's a security thing, but frankly, if you go into the BIOS and let's say someone set up your computer as legacy or ATA, which is the old hard drive operating mode. Well, maybe you want HCI, and if you've done your research, maybe you know why you want HCI, because it does more. And allegedly it's a little bit faster in some situations. Personally, it's not night and day to me, but it just depends on what you're doing, I guess. So this article will walk you through getting the drivers installed and switching your computer to the operating mode that you want to be on without reinstalling your OS, because as it says right here, the Dell supported method of changing is to completely reinstall operating system. So basically, general rule of thumb, don't change this SATA operating mode in the BIOS unless you're doing a clean install. And another little thing I would like to point out is I've actually reinstalled Windows in the past, and right before I reinstall Windows, I've changed the SATA operating mode from ATA to HCI. But the system also had two other hard drives in it, a D and an E drive, okay? And they were just hard drives that didn't have any operating system files on it, but they had data, music and video, whatever. And when I changed to HCI, those hard drives were running an ATA, and the computer, when I booted up and got Windows installed, couldn't recognize those drives. They just saw them as raw disks. So I was kind of a noob, and I lost all my data because I didn't know what to do. All I had to do was change some registry stuff around, and I would have been fine. And I'm just gonna put this link up, and it's very comprehensive if you have a Dell, but the same process is basically applicable for any machine. You just need to get the correct drivers, and don't get too thrown off by all this stuff here. These hardware IDs and stuff. What you really need to do is just read through something like this, and the best thing to do is get your system installed with the driver correctly first time around. So let's see if the driver pack is done, and it is. So I'm going to open this up and just show you how to. So here it is, and I'm using 7-zip. You can Google this. 7-zip is a free extraction, and I'm just going to hit extract to, and it's the name of the file, but what it does is it creates a folder. So we'll go ahead and run that, and I'll show you which drivers to pluck out. And this is just 99% of the time, this is the exact thing you'll do for whatever computer you have. So what you do is you extract it and you open the folder. And you open the folder again. And there's some XMLs and things here to help with more enterprise deployment stuff. But you can look at the README, read about you know, what they're doing with their driver packs, but let's just get to it. So when you open Windows 7, you see x64 and x86. And it's important to note that if you're in an environment that's 32-bit, you use x86. If it's 64-bit, you use x64. So make sure that if you're using, you know, which version of Windows you're using. Most of the time anymore, it's Windows 64-bit. So you're going to want to ignore the x86 and just open x64. And make this bigger here. So you have the whole kit and caboodle of drivers here. Most of the time, the video drivers are the largest. And as you can see here, that's 463 megabytes extracted. They're also the most problematic with plug and play, especially NVIDIA and ATI, just because they have. So you could also see that we downloaded about 410 megabyte cab file. When I extracted it, it grew to about 700 megabytes, 200 of which is drivers not related to video. The rest are all video. Video is just huge, and this is very common with Dell and really most anyone that has driver packs. But the nice thing is you got all your drivers for your computer right here. So storage, this is a standard layout. When you extract Dell cab drivers, this is a standard thing. But this might help you if you have a white box, which is a custom built computer. You can track down the right storage controller drivers because they all kind of look the same. So I'm opening up storage, and this is again for the Latitude E6540. Drilling down, here it is. So what we really need is less than 1 megabyte of files, okay? So what you do is you would right click on copying those files and go somewhere else. Just for now, I'm going back to my drivers folder and I'm just typing in, you know, and this is just for my own organizational purposes. You can call it anything you want, just as long as you know what it is. Storage, controller, drivers. It's kind of a long folder name. And then I might want to say that it's Windows 7 64-bit. Okay, and then I paste, and then boom. You know what? I should actually call this storage. That way I know what it is. So if I work at a smaller shop, I know where to grab this stuff. You could even put on a network share. So anyway, now I would copy this to my USB drive just by right-clicking, going to copy. I would open up File Explorer. I would see my USB drive in here, and I would open it up and right-click and hit paste. And I would create a folder called like drivers. Hang on. Create a shortcut. Create a folder like drivers, and then I would paste it in here, and then I would make this available to myself when I install Windows. So as long as Windows has access to these drivers, and as long as it's 64-bit, I have the correct drivers here. And I would encourage you to look at the version too if you have any further errors. But this looks to me like it supports pretty much all the Windows operating systems. Windows 7, Windows 8, so you can kind of verify that you got the right thing if you read it's pretty much the README. So, but anyway, that's it. And then when you specify the disk and install Windows, it will use these drivers, and it will not give you the 7B error. You will be up and running, and when you're up and running, you can go ahead and install the rest of your drivers with plug and play or however you like, or if you have more of an automated method. But that's pretty much it. I don't really need an example here because I think that you're frustrated enough with the problem at this point that you just kind of want to know why it's happening and what to do to prevent it. So that's really all you have to do, is get the correct. Now, I will also mention one more thing about this blue screen. You may think you're having this problem, but unless you see this is, 7B error, okay? Unless you're seeing that, you might actually have a different issue. So it's important to note that you're having this exact error code, okay? Now, if you see a file name in here or another error code, and it might be related to something in the BIOS that's turned on, like a trusted platform module for hard drive encryption, TPM, and that could be, I've seen that cause problems, video cards. So some situations, it might be best not to provide any drivers when you set up Windows, just the storage controller drivers that'll get you up and running. Then from there you can install the network card and work your way through it. And this is, situations where you're having a real hard time getting Windows loaded. So trying to keep it simple. If anyone wants me to elaborate a little bit more on how this works, just let me know and I'd be happy to do it. But that's it. I don't want to overcomplicate things, and have a great day.